Okay, so it's been a while since I've reviewed a newspaper, so I thought I'd continue with that. Today I'm going to review a newspaper which is Britain's best-selling newspaper has the biggest circulation. It's also one of our most controversial. This particular copy is from about 6 years ago. Some people might say, well, if you have contempt for this paper, why have it? You always get them, sitting around in trains and so on. And held on to a copy precisely because I thought I'd be making a video like this one day. Um, I also said at the start of this series that I'm doing on newspapers that I'm not going to pretend to be balanced. I'm not balanced. I have opinions on newspapers, and there are some which I have total contempt for. So this is not going to be a neutral video. It's going to be a very biased video, and I'm admitting that up front. Um, so just some of the basic details about the Sun. It was founded in 1964 as a successor to the Daily Herald. At that time, it was broadsheet format. In 1969, it was designated as a tabloid. Bear in mind, this refers to size as opposed to the what's offered by the newspaper itself. In early 2015, it had a circulation of 1,858,000. This is significantly reduced from about 5 years ago when it was around 3 million, although it has to be said that's a general characteristic of all national newspapers as online formats take over. The new editor, and this is actually news to me, is Tony Gallagher. He succeeds David Dinsmore. Now, The Sun's a very controversial newspaper. As you would expect, I guess, from Britain's biggest tabloid, it's one of the world's biggest newspapers insofar as sales are concerned. I'm not sure where it ranks in world terms, but would certainly be in the top, I'd say easily in the top 20. I think it's slightly smaller than Germany's Bild, but equally trashy. Um, so basically, they have these sort of very sensational cover headlines, focus a lot on celebrities. The actual format, in terms of where the sports are and so on, is similar to other newspapers, but they don't really have a business section as such. They have a lot of focus on celebrity stories, as you would expect. Tabloids uh, get a lot of their photos from the paparazzi, and that's the point I was making in my last video. Um, I'm going to discuss a few of the things that the Sun has been involved in, which has been heavily criticised. The coverage of mental health issues has been reckless, to say the least. When the former heavyweight boxer Frank Bruno was put into psychiatric care, they used the term Bunkers Bruno. Um, and they have a long track record of dealing with mental health issues in a very tasteless sort of way. When the AIDS pandemic was being reported in the 1980s, they had a big glaring headline saying straight sex will not get you AIDS, official. So again, very reckless sort of way to report that. Most controversial of all is Hillsborough. If you're from outside the UK, Hillsborough was a big sporting disaster in 1989 in Sheffield. What happened was 96 Liverpool fans were crushed to death. The exact circumstances remain heavily debated, but the Sun has admitted themselves that they embellished a lot of their reporting in that day. And to this day, the Sun does not sell well in Liverpool, and it's widely despised there, as is the editor at the time, Kelvin Mackenzie. Um, and that shows what sort of morals this paper has, that they would actually slander victims of a major tragedy in that way. So the Sun is, in my view, it's a despicable rag. Um, it was also central to the phone hacking scandal which emerged in the early 2010s, where some journalists were accused of hacking into private communications, of bribing the police. There was a big parliamentary inquiry into this. I don't believe that a very great deal has actually changed. I believe it's still the same culture at the Sun. The newspaper was owned by News Corp. It's now News UK, which is um, ran by Rupert Murdoch, who is one of the most controversial figures in the UK. This is a multi-billionaire Australian tycoon. Probably doesn't need an introduction, but he's a very controversial figure in the UK because of the influence he's had on political parties. The Sun is a very powerful paper in the sense that it can make or break a political party. The Labour Party has found that on several occasions now. they have had a basically smear campaign directed against him. And I'm not saying this as a Labour supporter because I'm not. I would be saying exactly the same thing if they were doing this to the Tories. But they have had a smear campaign against them. If there is a Labour leader that is leaning more to the left, you can guarantee